Hello, my soccer universe. You can hear it from my voice and probably the way I'm talking. I'm still very much under the weather and not feeling great. However, the show must go on. And so let's review round 34 of the Serie A weekend. A round that was very much compressed onto Sunday and Monday due to the Pope's funeral. In the last video, I focused maybe a little bit more on Milan thanks to this great win in the Derby semi-final in the Coppa Italia. However, this week we have to talk about Inter. Inter have lost now, incredibly, 3 games in a row. This is almost unheard of, and they're looking now at the real possibility of not winning a treble, but missing out on 3, if not 4 titles. Yes, a Club World Cup is in there as well, and that's not what Inter set out to do. I think at the beginning of the season, Inter were talking mostly about the Champions League because they were so close in the final. They lost against Manchester City 2 years ago, but in the league they thought they can waltz to another title. Now they find themselves behind Napoli after having suffered defeat to Roma. And what's even worse for Inter is they are hitting the bad form at the wrong time of the season because they look exhausted mentally and physically. And if Inter would lose out on the Serie A title again, we really have to ask, is Inzaghi actually underperforming with Inter? Because arguably Inter should have won the title when Milan won it in 22. They should have won the title last season. They won against Napoli. I'm not so sure because Napoli were really the dominant team that season, and they should win the title this season. They are the best squad in each of these 4 years, maybe minus the Napoli side under Spalletti. So that is an absolute remarkable turn of events. And yes, Inzaghi will say I've won 6 titles, but 3 of them are Super Coppas, titles that are not even worth talking about. Coppa Italias, I count, but they don't count for much. But if you're aiming high and you fall short, I'm afraid I have to say Inter is overall underperforming, not up to their level, but it's also down to squad building. This squad is not only too old, but it's also poorly constructed because Lautaro and Marcus Thuram up front are a great duo, one that I fear every time. However, Thuram is injured and the backup options, Arnautovic and Taremi, as much as I like Arnautovic, not good enough to pick up the slack. And when Bastoni is missing, then it's even worse. So we have to ask major questions for Inter. For now, they find themselves trailing by 3 points against Napoli, when they were just a week ago 3 points ahead of Napoli. So a really, really big turnaround. We also have a really crazy race for the final Champions League spot where Juve are now sitting in 4th place, only 3 points behind Atalanta, although I think Atalanta will make it through there. But then 1 point behind is Bologna, then there are Roma and Lazio, 2 more points behind Juventus, and even Fiorentina at 3 points behind Juve is not really out of it. And what's the best thing about it? They all play each other, so it will really be decisive. And then the red card for Kenan Yildiz might really hurt Juventus because they have 2 big games coming up. Another storyline coming out of this weekend is, of course, the postponement of the Atalanta-Lecce game that was then played on Sunday. The physio for Lecce has passed away. The club wanted the game to be postponed. Yes, it was postponed only from Friday to Sunday. The physio has not even been buried yet. And Serie A forced them to play. I don't quite understand it because I think you could have at least moved it to the midweek or maybe the midweek a week after. Personally, I think here just human dignity should take precedent. And you postpone a bunch of games because of the Pope's passing. So a team member passing should be considered. I really like the statement that Lecce made, playing in just purely white jerseys with no sign of their colors. Let's review all the action from this past weekend, and we also have a little bit Coppa Italia in there. For completeness sake, Bologna win against Empoli 2-1 in the return leg of the Coppa Italia semi-final, having won already the first one 3-0 and qualify with a 5-1 aggregate score for the Coppa Italia final, where they will meet Milan. It's their first final since 1974 when they last won this trophy, so a really, really long wait, even longer than Milan's. The goal scorers were Fabian in the 7th minute opening and scoring, then Kovalenko actually equalized for Empoli in the 33rd minute before Dalinga in the 86th minute gets the winner on the night. As I said, aggregate, it was already done and dusted. After beating Inter in the Coppa Italia semi-final resoundingly 3-0, Milan go to Venice and get a very unremarkable 2-0 away win at Venezia. The best thing was the setting. I mean, I love the Pierluigi Penzo, and especially if it's played under nice sunshine and you see the lagoon and so on. It's just wonderful. The game, really not much to talk home about. It was not a glorious win for Milan by any stretch of the imagination. Christian Pulisic opens the scoring in the 5th minute, and then whole lot of nothing. A Yeboah goal was even disallowed for an offside. It probably should have been a penalty for Venezia. Late on, Santi Jimenez gets the second goal to seal the deal for Milan, and he's finally back on the score sheet as well. Unbelievably, Inter suffered their 3rd loss in the space of a week, this time losing at home to Roma. 1-0, a Roma team that under coach Ranieri is now 17 games unbeaten in the league, and they keep on picking up points with only scoring a single goal, which is also a pretty good stat. However, they probably could have scored more than just the 1 goal by Matias Soulé in the 22nd minute, where it was a nice attack, but then there was ping pong in the box. Soulé gets the ball after Shomurodov assists and gets it through the legs of Jan Sommer into the net, and that already settled the game. Well, not really, but you know what I mean. Inter had plenty of possession, but Roma were really good in catching out Inter on the counter-attack and a little bit more clinical finishing. They probably could have made it 2, if not 3-0. But it also has to be said that late on, there was a clear foul by Ndika on Bisek in the penalty box that should have resulted in a penalty. And so Inter, even with a very tired and labored performance, could have gotten out something. Other than that, I think the biggest chance fell to Barella, who did not even hit the target. Not a great showing by Inter, and Inter hitting the skids on the wrong end of the season. And in the evening, Napoli managed a sorpasso within a week. Remember, just a week ago, they were 3 points behind Inter, then they were level, now they're 3 points ahead thanks to a 2-0 win over Torino. A routine win with Scott McTominay being the superstar, again scoring a brace in the first half, and then Napoli just seeing it out. And in this form, especially the way Inter are looking, it seems like Napoli have to be considered now the favorites for a title, which would mean Conte winning the Serie A title with his 3rd team, something that has never been achieved before. But shout out to McTominay, who was again the man of the match. Goals by Nico Gonzalez and Colomiani, both in the first half, give Juve a 2-0 home win over last place Monza. However, the big talking point was the red card brandished to Kenan Yildiz just before the halftime break when he elbowed an opponent unnecessarily so, and he will now miss crucial games, and he's the star player for Juventus at the moment. So that might not work out in favor for Juventus, even though other results surrounding them were working out for them, at least this round. Lecce get a credible 1-1 draw at Atalanta. However, all the talk leading up to the game and after the game was about the death of the physio, which actually postponed this game to Sunday. However, Lecce felt that it should have been postponed more, and I think they have a point. As a protest, they played in purely white shirts with a black ribbon on them, names and numbers on the back as well, and then saying no valor, no color as a protest. So a completely different look than what you see behind me. On Monday evening, Bologna only managed a 0-0 draw at Udinese, never an easy ground to go, and despite having all the dominance of the game, they cannot break down the Udinese defense, meaning that Juve are now surpassing Bologna. And likewise for Lazio, who almost got upset by Parma. Parma scored twice early in each half through Ondrejka and had a 2-0 lead, and it really looked like with their tight defense they might hold on to a sensational win. However, 2 Pedro goals in the 79th and the 84th minute got Lazio level, and then it seemed even they could get the win. However, now they're stuck level on points with Roma, and it's really anyone's guess who will finish in this 4th Champions League spot. Let's also look at the remaining 3 games of Serie A. Early on Sunday, a Strefezza goal gave Como the 3 points with a 1-0 win over Genoa. Well, Yassin Adli scored the opener and assisted the second goal by Mandragora. All the talk in Fiorentina's 2-1 win over their rivals Empoli was, of course, that Mandragora goal, because Yassin Adli's cross was chested up and then bicycle kicked into the net. Goal of the week for sure. And on Monday evening, Cagliari beat Verona 2-0 away from home, meaning they have now an 8-point cushion to the first relegation spot, meaning Cagliari are more or less safe this season. As I've said, Napoli managed to surpass, so 3 points ahead of Inter now, and now they're the favorites. And they have a relatively good program, but a game like Parma away does scare me a little bit. Inter, yes, have to play Lazio at home. The question is, how will the Barcelona semi-final impact Inter? Is Inter really now hitting the wall, or might they pick it up again and then fall into another Serie A title? But as I said already in the opener, it's really crazy for this final Champions League spot. I think Fiorentina are not really out of it. The first team that's really out of it is Milan. They have no chance. They need to win the Coppa. Otherwise, no chance of them moving into Europe even. But at the moment, it's just the top 6 that get into Europe. So at the moment, Lazio and Fiorentina would be missing out, but have the cup final in mind. If Bologna get in there, then there will be another point. Bologna should win the cup and Milan miss out. On the bottom, now the picture is getting clear. I mean, Venezia, Empoli didn't really do themselves favor by losing. Lecce picked up that 1 point, which actually might now see them really survive. Verona, despite losing to Cagliari, was already safe. Parma and Cagliari really picked up big points. So it's now a 3-way race with only one surviving between Lecce, Venezia and Empoli. Upcoming games, we have in a title race Napoli, a very dicey trip to Lecce, a Lecce team that really need points for survival, whereas Inter face Hellas Verona at home. Maybe this is just the opponent that Inter will need after a really tough week and a tough game at Barcelona, where it's not even clear how they will travel there thanks to the blackout in Spain. However, there are 2 more games that really stick out, and both are late on Sunday. We have Roma against Fiorentina. Can Roma continue the form and really push for the Champions League? Remember, this was a team that was close to relegation when Ranieri took over. And then Bologna, Juve, an absolutely massive game. Milan, a rather nondescript game against Genoa. There's really not much at stake there. So that was it from me from round 34. What a round. What a round. I really cannot believe that Napoli is now sitting 3 points clear of Inter, which actually means that Inter probably will need to win out. And that's really, really a tough ask for Inter at this moment, although I could see Napoli slipping up. None of these teams are perfect, but it also has to be said, should Conte get this home? Yes. There's the caveat that Napoli had only 1 game per week, and that's a major advantage over Inter, who had always a full schedule. But still, getting this Napoli squad to a title by losing Kvaratskhelia in the winter window, that must be Conte's best work ever. Do you think so? Please let me know who you think will become Italian champions in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like these, and I will talk to you soon with more things in my Serie A universe. Bye! Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, here are some videos and playlists that you may enjoy too. Also, please consider subscribing to my channel and hit the little bell icon so you get notified whenever something happens in my soccer universe. And with that, have a wonderful day. Bye!